deeper than I have, but like that feel of like that dead weight or like a shake. I'm muted, talking to myself over here.
You were for a second. I was trying to come up with that. I was like,
but no, the jumping one is funny. I totally forgot about that one. Yeah, that was like I was doing like 40 jumps to start the day just by myself, working it by myself, and could not get anywhere near. And one of the high school athletes like challenged me later in the day, and first jump was a 3-inch PR. I was like, this is so crazy. Like maybe potentiation from earlier in the day, whatever you want to say. But I was like, man, I was just like, I'm not getting beat by this high schooler because I'll never hear the end of it. 3-inch PR. But one of the things you talked about at the very start of the podcast, you talked about getting the athletes to feel, and that's something that I've really liked, the shakes and the dead weight, and just I don't even know the best way to describe it. And I know you've been in this rabbit hole much deeper than I have, but like that feel of like that dead weight or like a shake or a swing, and using the momentum of your own body. For somebody that has a very like non-elastic background, when you get that feel, it's like, oh wow, that's nice. Like that feels good. That feels like how I'm supposed to move. What are you kind of doing with that feel? Like with that athlete, like how are you talking to them about that? How are you tying that in? How are you preaching to them the importance of that? Is it just that for me, it's just like I feel that I'm like, that feels athletic. Like, and when and that's a big thing, like impulses and drop catches are another big one that athletes feel the same way. They almost always like shakes and like impulses and drop catches are all three that they go like, that feels athletic, that feels fast, that feels like how I'm supposed to move. Like, but like, what do you do with that? How do you tangibly do something like that? Like, what's kind of your approach with that feeling that we're talking about?
yeah, dude, that's been what's filling up my journals lately is how do I take this stuff that's like the classical Qigong shake. And there's two places I've seen this. One is the Diego Maradona. I've been talking about him on my like emails and podcasts recently. Diego Maradona was one of the best soccer players of the all time, really, but of the 80s particularly. And there's a warm up he's really well known for. Are you good with the microphone?
Yeah.
Okay. And it was there was in I think Napoli in 1986 or 1987. There was like this band, the song by Opusson called "Life Is Life," and he's doing this total dribble exhibition to the music, like all these crazy tricks to the music. Has the ball sitting on his head, his shoelaces are untied, like he is in his own world, but this like exuding just this pure childlike joy of just playing. And what was interesting is in one of the clips, I wouldn't have thought anything of this, or not much of it, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. I've been thinking about it a lot more lately. Is he's just doing this whole body shake? It's like he's just like not like it's almost fast. It's faster than like a twerk. It's like a speed little like a belly dance, but even faster, like faster and tighter. And if you watch like an animal, like people talk about animals, they get like they almost die and then they have to shake real fast. There's just like that, like it's like so quick. It's just purely reflexive. So he's doing the shake, and ultimately that. Yeah, like I've said before, that does disinhibit. And so, and I'll say, here's an anecdote to back in my Berkeley days. I think this is where this all stacks up for me. I should write this in my journal. Historically, I've been not a very fluid dancer. From my dancing partners throughout the years, it's always, wow, you're really tight or stiff or whatever. And it's like there's too much inhibition. And you can't just say, well, be more fluid, because then you might overcorrect. You'll just like, well, you're trying too hard to be loose. You're trying hard. You can't just try your way out of things. So long story short, I used to live in Berkeley, California, which is like the home of a lot of weird hippie shit. And it's funny because in Cincinnati, if I was going to go to like ecstatic dance, I think there's one in Cincinnati somewhere. But in Berkeley, there was one like literally 8 blocks down the road. So I just remember I went there one night, which is basically ecstatic dance is dancing. There's no drugs, no like mind altering substances. And you just dance. There's not like moves. You just dance however you want. Like whatever the song comes on, your goal is to shake and move your body, whatever your body wants to do.
Is it like a class or like kind of like a bar like type thing, or what is it?
Just show up and do whatever the hell you want, basically.
Oh, really? That's awesome.
Yes. Just go, don't hurt anybody, and just, you can go nuts, basically. And so I do this, and it's like, because I heard all this stuff about this. I don't remember from where, but I was like, oh, that sounds cool. So I go to the thing, come back. I'm dancing with my wife the next day, and she's like, you are so fluid and relaxed. Like it was like notably different. And a lot of that was just, I mean, the body is so complex. It's funny. I was going to say, I'm so far off the rails of normal strength and conditioning right now. This is so far away from the NSCA. I have nothing against the NSCA, honestly, but this is so far out in left field. Like this is, but this is it. Like, that's why though, like that. And the shaking, I think it does a lot of things. You could say from a science, you could put your science hat on and say, well, it does something to the muscle spindles or the stretch reflexes or whatever. It probably does. From a mind body thing, I think it's even bigger because we hold on to emotions in our muscles, or you could say our fascia or whatever, exactly how, but we have holding patterns. And what are you doing when you dance and you aren't even thinking and you let your body move? And there's a lot of like maybe like shaking or swinging or whatever. Is your body starts to break up those withholding patterns. I think, I don't know, you might be too young for this, but Frank Yang is a guy who was really popular in like the vertical jump. He had like a 40-inch standing, one of the very first standing 40-inch verticals on the Just Jump mat. This was like 20 years ago. And so, but then he had something he did like on the bus, on a crowded bus. It's like, I'm going to move every muscle in my body at the same time. It's basically just him shaking and contorting uncontrollably in front of everybody. But long story short though, is when you shake and don't try to hold back, you can release some of these withholding patterns. And ironically, yes, those are withholding patterns that are going to slow you down or cause you maybe not to jump as high, or those things. And part of that, though, is I think you do have, there is a funneling of that. Like, I don't think I was faster after going the next day after going to that, if that makes sense. Like, there's a little bit tighter integration that needs to happen. And I'll explain that in a second with something like sprinting. And I talk about sprinting a lot. To me, sprinting is just my world where I can really have all this stuff land really directly. And then I could take it over to something else. Like, even if I go play disc golf, or if I'm going and playing a game with my kids, or coaching soccer and I'm kicking the ball around at halftime or whatever, like, for me, my portal is the world of running and sprinting and jumping and track type outputs. But so how do we take this over into the game? Because if you watch Maradona play, I mean, this is a guy with just pure mastery, uninhibited on the field. And if I even look at my own sporting background in basketball, what killed me was just inhibition and fear more than anything. It wasn't that I didn't have the talent, because there were so many situations, if I didn't feel pressure, if I was playing like one-on-one with a really good player, I could beat them because there was no pressure. And so much of it was that. And then where I've taken this to is like, I'll tell you about a workout I did the other day. And these are pieces that I'm starting to bring into the table, because the athlete has to buy into it. I can't just go and be like, just doing weird and crazy stuff. Before I get too far, I will say, anything that involves even like the freaking Theragun, like anything that's touching, percussive, RPR, like whatever it is, I've become actually more good with those things, because that also, like, that fits with the disinhibition. I go first to things you do in your own body. Like Tommy John talked about passive treatments. Let's like move your body first. That's first and foremost your goal. But outside of it, doing things like, like for me, like if I'm doing like a sprinting thing, like I used to just totally get away from this, because like the treatment thing, but like I'll hit like the psoas RPR points and some of the back of the head stuff in like a running workout, like towards the end of it, not the beginning, because I don't like to feel like I have to do this to be ready. It's like, I'm going to do this when it feels right. And then it really is, for me, that's really powerful. Anyways, so here's how it's shaken out for me. Here's some of the things I'm working with. One really powerful session for me, I was out, this was me. And then I can tell you I was talking a little bit about how this recent session I was trying to integrate this in. A lot of my stuff is online now. I'm going to be actually coaching at a nearby high school here with the track team. So I'll let you know how this goes with like high school kids and how do we find a good way to integrate it in? Because if I just go and I just start shaking like it's static dance, they're going to think I've lost it, and that's not going to connect. So like I mentioned, like the little dribble type drills for running are good. There was something in the 80s. There's a really good book on Evelyn Ashford was the world record holder in the 100-meter dash in the women's 100 in the 80s, competing with all the roided up East Germans. And one of the things her coach had her do is a thing called shake-ups. It was written about in this book that I got on her training. And I was like, what the hell is a shake-up? And I finally found some random ass video that I think is it. But in some way, you could make that movement a total like disinhibition movement. Like, I don't even give a shit about exactly where the joints are at exactly what time. It's more like, and the best I can describe it is think like the little foot dribble drills, but then the arms hang straight down and the shoulders shake side to side like a salsa shimmy. And it's literally just it's linking sprinting. Now it's sprinting, say, hey, do this. Now feel more relaxed. See how loose my shoulders are. I want yours to see if you can loosen up a little bit. Now, in something like sprinting, there is also a needed amount of compression. So, I mean, for some people, some people are already there and they're fine. A lot of people, though, have a ton of just inhibition around the shoulders like crazy. I just one of my online clients, I just last week sent him, he had sent me a sprint video and I sent him videos of salsa shimmies for his upper body. And so that's going to be some of his homework, and he's cool with that. Part of it is that developing that relationship over time. All right, so but here was the workout I did personally, and I invite anyone to try this. That I felt this like crazy, and this was so good. And it also tied in with something that Darian Barr told me once. Is I was out running in the creek doing my little trail run thing. Then there's a trail next to the creek, and it's like about 150 meters of a trail, and I time myself there, so I get my time. And then there's a field next to it. And so a lot of workouts, like my recovery days is running on random stones. I saw you running on plates one time, by the way. I thought that was awesome, like a little 2.5. And then I'll run the trails a little bit. Sometimes I'll do just run. Sometimes I'll do intervals. Sometimes I'll skip and gallop. And then I go to the field and I do crawls. And so I was doing crawls and I had headphones in, and I like this app called Rock My Run because it has like 130 beats per minute. Every song in the playlist is 130 beats per minute. It's just a continuous running mix.
What is this?
It's called Rock My Run. It is the shit.
That is sick. That's awesome. I'm gonna check that out.
Oh, the best $8 a month ever. Seriously, the best thing ever. And so I have this constant beat. And so my crawl workout was crawl 10 yards, which is nothing. Stand up, do a Maradona shake. Like just feel his hips and shoulders separate out. Crawl 10 more meters. And I did that for just like 100 meters, 120 meters. Got back on the trail to do sprints. I have never felt my hips that like, it's hard to just, like they were loose, but they were like connected. Like the glutes were just hitting like bam, 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 bam. And I was like, I could never teach someone to do this. There is nothing like I talked about. You could either take away and disinhibit, or you could activate. There is no activation that will do that. The only thing that will do that is disinhibiting. And so for me, that was it. And the crawl too, the crawls roll to the beat. So whatever the beat was, I had to crawl to the beat, which involves a lot of rib cage movement and those kind of things. So there's your upper body, your shoulder integration. You stand up, you get your hips going, and ultimately you do need both. Like the athlete I was working with this past weekend, his shoulders was pretty easy. We could get his shoulders moving pretty well. His hips were not coming along as well, but towards the end of the session, we started to get that. So that was a specific sequence that was really helpful. Now, how do you get athletes to do that? Again, I find doing like little small amplitude sprint drill type movements to be an easy place to do it. I also like the Marinovich stuff. So we did a little bit of this the other day. If you've seen like the guy who goes by the handle Power Plus, who is taking on the Marinovich stuff, Marvin Gary's work. I saw Marvin Gary did a lot of this, and they do it in the water too. It's basically like a rapid fire. If you see like the guy will have like a physio ball, and the person just has to kick it as fast as they can with their foot. That's kind of like a hamstring tantrum. For some reason, I have a knee jerk just dislike of the hamstring tantrums. I don't know why. I did it once and I was like, I don't know what's going on here, but I mean, I'm sure it's a fine movement. But we did a little bit of like just flicking your foot up and down as fast as you possibly can in space. Cause this guy also had like just around his knees, he just was kind of inhibited. Stuff just wasn't moving very quickly. So to disinhibit, I do like some of that stuff because it's kind of like you're sneaking it in. It's like Mr. Miyagi and the Karate Kid. I'm not necessarily telling you that you have to do it this way. I'm more just kind of shaking off the reins of inhibition. And even with the Marinovich stuff, like a Power Plus, you'll see like a lot of jumps where there's like a little jump and a little like double flick of the feet or something. Or even Marv Marinovich, I saw him with the video where a guy was doing pogos, and every pogo, the feet would like flick a little bit.